Welcome to everybody to the Susan Tully Leslie Boardroom of the 1887 building. It's Monday, June 9th, 2025, 6 p.m. We're here for the Elkhorn Area School Board meeting. Start off and thank you for the meetings. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All this meeting to order, roll call, please.
Adam Andre is excused. Eric Gordon.
Here.
Mrs. Ingersoll is excused. Mrs. Costa.
Here.
Mrs. Reckless.
Here.
Mr. Scarrow.
Here.
Mrs. Vaughn.
Okay, this meeting has been properly noticed. See, we have no community participation. First item then is the regular session support meetings of May 27th, 2020. That's have been distributed. If there's any comments or corrections, I'll take those under advisement. Otherwise, I'd like to entertain a motion. Which has something.
I move to approve the minutes from May 27th, regular session. Do we have a closed session?
No,
No.
session.
Just regular session, school board meeting as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, do a roll call because I need to abstain, please.
Eric Gordon.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mrs. Reckless.
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow.
Abstain.
And Mrs. Vaughn.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Next item is general and other fund bills.
The general other fund bills this evening covers checks number 155298 through 155418. Wire transfers 311 through 317 and ACH check numbers 880 through 920. And the combined amount $851,101.86. And then there was a memo on several of the bills in your board packet.
Questions or concerns on the proposed bills approved?
I know, this is in regards to Durham. I know that our contract kind of is more encompassing or covers kind of the extras. Where did we fall with the payment that went out to them in relation to that? And I don't know if that's something you can answer in that kind of broad brush spectrum.
Where do we fall in terms of rates?
Yeah, I mean, did we, because I know, like I said, isn't there something built into our contract? I'm thinking about
Yes.
the current contract, there's something built in for like all of those extras.
Correct. Yeah, there are different categories. So we have like daily transportation, and
Right.
extracurricular, which is distance in hours. for the
Right.
Extracurricular.
Right,
And then there's a factor of a % increase that applies to all the rates.
okay,
So it's-
and we still fell within our budget amount for during the
Yes.
timeframe, okay.
So
That was-
sometimes what I'll do, like with the athletic department, I'll ask them, okay, are you changing anything schedule wise in terms of competitions? Or is there anything that would impact in terms of distance and things like that?
Right, right,
And then those will factor in. Sometimes if they do extra tournament or something like that, they'll.
yeah,
use
so I'm
something.
thinking if we went to state on a couple things, or, you know,
Right.
how that all
Yeah,
falls in.
and a lot of times for the state, they won't be taking buses because it might be just fewer, it depends on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just a handful of kids,
Okay.
and then it might be the coaches and the kids going.
Yeah, it's just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a
More
good
than-
question.
it's been kind of a, just like I said, more of a broad brush kind of question, so.
Unfortunately, our spring team sports didn't make it very deep in the playoffs, so I think we're all done with the busing. This point, aside from the summer school.
Any other questions? Otherwise, entertain a motion.
Okay,
I did the first one.
yeah, I wanted to do that one because I don't like doing.
Oh, okay.
I move to approve the general other fund bills of June 9th, 2025, check numbers 155298 to 155418. Wire numbers 311 to 317 and ACH numbers 880 to 920. in the combined amount of $851,000, $851,101.86 as presented.
A second, please.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the general and other fund bills of June 9th, 2025. Check numbers 155-298 to 155-418. Wire numbers 311 to 317 and ACH numbers 880 to 920. The combined amount of $851,101.86 as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome. Move on to the next item, student fee adjustment. Been proposed to adjust the high school student parking fee from $25 to $100 per year. And there was some discussion at last prior meeting.
Yes.
I remember us discussing prior to that meeting, so.
This discussion, as part of that failed referendum, one of the areas that we were gonna look at was fees. The board did review at the budget retreat all the fees, and the one fee that the board selected to do an increase on was because they felt it was discretionary, not a required fee, but is to increase the parking fees, as well as because in our area comparisons, we were below many of the other districts, so.
That makes sense.
This reflects that recommendation discussion from the budget retreat.
Entertain a motion to approve this fee adjustment.
I move to approve the student fee adjustment as presented.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome, that passes. All right, we're on to some first readings. First reading of the 2025-2026 Community Service Plan, Fund 80.
The policy committee met, and this was one of the policies. Again, we're reviewing all the Neola policies, but in going through our current policies, we're lacking a specific community service fund policy, and it's one we'd like to get on the books prior to the next round of audits and before a bill finishing up. And so it is taking language and putting that in place, so we're not waiting for the Neola policies to be updated. Is this the right? That's not the right one.
No, the actual policy, I think, was approved at the last board meeting, because we brought that to the board to have.
Oh,
that.
that's right.
Yeah.
That was,
So this would be the proposed service plan of community
Okay, I
service
apologize.
activity.
Execute.
Yep. So, and this is something the board reviewed at least the last budget meeting prior, when we talked about it a little bit. The front sheet is kind of a summary document that normally gets inserted in our annual meeting booklet. But probably the detail to that is attached there, or is linked at the very top.
you want me to click that?
Yep, that's great. And then what you'll see there is this year's community service budget, and then potentially proposed budget for next year. And then the additions of programs or staffing is what's highlighted in purple. So that would include the middle school extracurricular programs, looking at 2 school resource officer positions, community social worker, mental health navigator, the director of strategic partnership position, community broadcasting program. We have a small broadcasting program currently, but this would be probably extending the community service broadcasting program. I don't know, Jason, do you want to touch upon that? I know we didn't talk
Yeah,
about that.
that would cover the equipment budget, but then also the stipends that are currently paid and would be paid to the supervisor and the individuals that do all of the live streaming and broadcasting of the different events. So it'd be a slight expansion on the current programming, but it would be shifting it all over to that community service programming. And they have a pretty good viewership on the events. That's significantly grown over time as to what they've been covering.
And then looking at a part-time weekend custodian position and moving that. It is currently a full-time position, but only half of it is Fund 80. But as we look at the demand of community services, that would move that to a full-time position within Fund 80. So all the purple items you see there are the new program components in Fund 80. This would be a first reading, but one of the recommendations that the Department of Public Instruction has is that as programs change in Fund 80, that the school board takes official action in that process. So that's why it's being presented this way.
Most of these are already in place, with the exception of currently we have one SRO officer. This will be moving to 2 SRO positions once they're able to staff it, which probably won't be until later in fall before the police force is up to their staffing level to where they can provide the 2.
Is there any overlap with the community social worker, mental health navigator with what county services provide?
Yes, that's why we would put them into the community service fund. They're actually, those 2 positions are both county employees that we have a agreement similar to our SRO officers, where they're working on site providing that community service within the district, but they're actually paid employees, so we contract with the county for that portion within which they're working within our service area.
I believe the billing piece is like 75% of their personnel costs.
Yeah.
As well.
And then the summer, they're still full-time employees, so then they shift back over to
On
the
the county's
county
budget, so,
so
you
yeah.
can just kind of, what bucket they get paid out.
Yeah. Works exactly like the SRO officers, but.
So,
And we found it to be very advantageous because it keeps them interconnected into that network and those resource decisions and staffing.
The community service custodian, are they responsible for the entire district or are they mostly middle school, high school?
It's mostly where the facilities are being utilized by community groups, so I think they predominantly spend the time probably at the high school
Okay,
more than anything else.
And grounds between
And
the high
grounds
school
between
and
the two.
middle school.
We do use the other buildings for community service, but I think we just wrap that into the regular custodial staff rotation. We don't typically have large weekend events at the elementaries.
Other questions on this first reading? All right, let's move on to the 2025-2026 preliminary district budget.
This is a first reading of the 25-26 proposed budget. As the board's aware, the budget process is always a journey that we actually started in December when there's a budget calendar established, and a lot of the budget development work was kind of contingent on the results of as the board's aware, the April referendum. And with the community not supporting that question, as we were making our projections, our budget deficit was probably in the neighborhood of about $4.6 million for this coming school year. And one of the strategies we looked at, because we're at a nice starting point in terms of our operating budget and our fund balance, was to strategize between looking at maybe a 2-year phase in terms of how do we kind of bridge and look at balancing that budget over multiple years. And as part of that strategy, we looked at using the attrition model. We looked at some restructuring to reduce really the deficit in our overall budget process. And to be honest with you, that is still ongoing. And some of the numbers you see here are likely will change over even the next 30 days. So in addition to things we control, I guess, in terms of some of the staffing pieces, the other big unknown is what's going to happen at the state level. And you may have heard, at least there seemed to be at the beginning of last week some understanding or discussions that were going on between the legislative leadership and the governor's office trying to work on settling a budget, and by the end of the week that those talks kind of dissolved. And Joint Finance Committee, which is really the powerful committee that establishes the state budget, is now set up a meeting on Thursday, and K-12 education is one of the primary discussions. So it's likely that, and again, this is probably more my opinion, but whatever they come up with tends to not vary a lot from what the final budget looks like. So I think it's gonna be real critical to see what their discussion is this Thursday. Certainly the couple of the categories, special education, I think is gonna be a discussion point. Supposedly, you may recall, we talked about this at the budget retreat, that there's this high cost special needs component and then there's regular special ed reimbursement. And the special ed high cost reimbursement, the state sets aside about $14 million, and for regular special ed reimbursement, it's about $574 million. So very different numbers. For our district, we're talking between $25,000 and $2.3 million. There seems to be some discussion. Rumor has it that the emphasis is going to be on the high costs piece and maybe modifying that to a certain extent, which for most districts, including ours, wouldn't probably be nowhere near the benefit as it would be if we increased the regular special ed reimbursement. But that's supposedly part of the discussion that's going to be going on this week. So I don't know, Jason, if you heard any more updates, but
We met with Representative August last Monday, but at that time. There was little bit of a sentiment of optimism that the government or that the governor's office had a couple individuals working with the Republican caucus and working on the negotiations at that point. That was before they broke down. But it was a very small team that was working on the negotiations, and so there wasn't a lot of information. He did reiterate, which I've heard from himself, Whitkey, even NASA's office, that there is sentiment around increasing special education funding. I think the one item which I haven't heard anybody talk about, but it was in the governor's proposal. And I think people aren't talking about because it really only impacts 15% of the districts in the state. And that's the low revenue limit ceiling. And that's the potential item that would have the greatest impact for us. Because the governor's proposal, if it comes in anywhere close to that, his proposal was $1,000 increase in year one and $400 in year two. So for us, from a revenue limit authority, that would represent, I think when we looked at about a little over $3 million. If that was included over the, $3 million differential for us. So that's probably the biggest piece. I've heard nothing from any of the groups related to that. Either way, neither positive nor negative. So still fingers crossed that provision goes through, gets included, but the special ed, like Bill said, I've also heard that too, that I think there's some of this should probably because they could then go and politically say, yeah, we gave a lot of money towards high cost special education, but keeping the expenditure very low. Right now, the provision says that correct me if I'm wrong, with any expenditure over $30,000, districts can get reimbursed up to 90% of the cost, but in reality, so little dollars are put into that pocket that it ends up being a reimbursement
24%.
around 24%. So while they say you're eligible for up to 90%, they haven't funded it to come anywhere close to that. Yeah, so no, not a whole lot, but in a few weeks, we might have a better picture. The good thing is, or the good news, is it's not gonna be any worse than what we projected. So what we laid out is the worst case scenario, even if not a single additional dime is put towards education. That's our scenario from what we're working.
Any other questions?
Does the state have a deadline? Come up with a budget?
October. Right?
Or not.
Their new fiscal year starts July 1st, so
Yeah, I was
historically,
gonna say,
but I've seen budgets not get decided until the second week of October.
and it has to be in October.
Well,
Yeah.
what forced the issue that one year is schools needed to finalize a tax levy. And finally it got done. That's the latest I've ever seen it. But
We just operate as is.
right. So even though there's a lot of numbers here, I can tell you, a lot of these numbers are gonna change. And to a certain extent, even if weren't in the, middle of a new state budget, there are factors we don't know until October in any given year in terms of the student count and state aids and things like that.
Yeah, and open enrollment for us. I think last year. What did we project in the budget for open enrollment last year?
It was maybe 10 or 25, wasn't very many.
Five, and I think we ended up well over 100 on
Yeah.
net open enrollment, so it's. Yeah, can fluctuate quite a bit.
We have factored in, a number of reductions, student transportation, looking at expanding some walking zones. We met with the bus company. Last week and reviewed that. Staff changes in terms of custodians. Reductions are going from full-time to part-time. 5 less instructional days. Again, the restructuring of Fund 80, we kind of talked about that. Looking at not doing the licensing for the Avid at the elementary school. And then the restructuring, staff reductions at all levels, at the elementary level, 7 positions. Middle school, at least 4 positions, 2 study hall aides and an office staff position. High school would be a little over 3 positions in terms of reductions. With some of the positions that we're going to refill, when people leave and we refill them, sometimes there's savings there as well. We haven't factored all of those in. And then obviously the increase in the parking fee, the board just approved, and then open enrollment, factoring in 50 students. So those are, a quick summary of some of the reductions that, as the board knows, really spent 2 budget meetings kind of reviewing some of that.
On the bus route changes, I believe that's something you're bringing back to give us the exact detail of what changes are occurring. correct?
Yeah, we did just get the bus company, they've been really proactive on it, so they do have the. Consolidation of the routes and the proposal came towards the end of last week, so I'll plan on putting it on the next board agenda. It would create 2 walk zones that we don't currently have at the elementary level. For West Side and Jackson. And so we'll bring that back for the board to review at the next meeting in June.
Thank you. All right, anything else on proposed budget?
And just in case someone's watching, it does not mean that everybody that attends Jackson and West Side would be in a walk zone. There's certain areas that live in close proximity to the school and don't cross a major highway or intersection would be in a walk area.
We'll have that detail at our next board meeting. Yes. Let's move on then to the first reading of modifications to the professional and support staff employee handbooks, please.
Would Taylor, would you like to review or go through the highlights on this?
The first one, at a really high level, our Skyward system, which uses our time off, our employees submit time off through, can allow time off requests as little as 15 minutes. Payroll pays in 15-minute intervals, increments, and so we needed to align our handbook policy with actual practice. With the reduction of our 5 days, our 5 school days next school year, we needed to align our minimum yearly work hours for some of our support staff groups so that their benefits were not negatively impacted by going down 5 days. And then last open enrollment, so in the fall of 2024, planning for 2025, when we went through benefit open enrollment, because we are a January 1 effective date, our district share of our premiums were just changed and modified, so just a catch up there to reflect our handbook update. We're just crossing out and removing our standard health plan from being referenced because we only have 1 health plan now. That was kind of a historical thing. We're really, really proud to be able to support our staff in going back to school and getting certifications. But unfortunately, sometimes that means staff who don't complete the program owe us money back. And the way that the current policy is written is that employee needs to pay us via personal check if they do not pass their course, because for our special education teaching assistants, If they go and they complete their para educator career certificate through Gateway, Elkhorn pays 100% of the cost of the program upfront. And so if they don't complete their course or they don't pass their course, they are required to pay us back. When we kind of had a discussion with legal, because we unfortunately have been caught in a situation twice where an employee owes us back, and we've had to put a lot of time and effort into tracking that employee down, getting them to write the rest of the check. Legal kind of said, hey, you have the ability, if your handbook is officially and it officially notes that you have the ability to deduct that overpayment on their last paycheck if they're no longer with you, or they have the ability to deduct off the next paycheck if that person is still with you. So we are very, very clear with all of our participants in this course. They fill a sign-in agreement under outlining the understanding of kind of expectations of them, what they're entering into with this course. And now one of the items on that authorization is that we can deduct if they don't pass the course on their last paycheck. Now we just need the handbook to mirror that authorization as well.
And this is the type of program and course that if you attend and participate in the class, you're going to pass. It's not
Yes.
that, oh my gosh, this
No.
is really hard.
You have to
Well,
basically,
it's
no
outrageous.
shows to your scheduled weekly policy.
While we're here, I have a kind of a question. Is there anything within a certain time frame that the district needs to be reimbursed? Is
Yes.
that covered later?
And if our staff leave within 1 year of completing this program, because we don't want people just using us to go back to school and then leave. If they leave within 1 year, we are also required to repay us. And so that is number 2 here, is to
Okay.
then pull that off their last paycheck.
Okay, but also do they have, that's good. That wasn't that wasn't where my
Oh,
question.
where you
My
going?
question was, do they have a specific time frame in which they have to repay us?
This gets us there, because right now, it's a little bit gray in terms of when
I
they
mean, do have
can.
30 days, 60
Mhm.
days, okay.
So taking it off that last paycheck. That's
Okay,
that base
Get that
covered.
done.
Yes.
And then the only other part is, and again, it's the banking brain,
Yes,
personal check.
yes.
Is a personal check, I mean, I know you said you basically have to be a no-go, no-show, and
Yes,
not pass.
yes.
But do we want a personal check from somebody who's not gone and not shown?
Yes,
Do we want payment by a cashier's check? Do we want
Cashier's
payment
check
by-
or something.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I mean, I think about the check,
absolutely.
so do we
Absolutely.
need to alter that? I don't know,
Absolutely.
so just fine.
Because I suppose we would also accept cash, that employee wanted to repay us that way as well.
Yeah,
So that's a great
cash.
point.
Yeah.
Cash or certified paycheck, yeah.
That's a great point.
No, wrong answer.
So do you want us to update or do we need to specify that?
Because we have personal check in there, so we will update that language to be
Yeah,
more.
Something,
Paycheck.
yeah,
Alright.
certified funds. Yeah, certified funds.
Yeah, I almost prefer to just move away from accepting checks on anything, because there's so many, we have the method in which they can pay by credit card or debit card, whatever, to pay electronically.
That's true.
Right.
However you need to word it, I think
Yes.
that's, I think the
More
idea of
open-ended.
Are we
Absolutely.
still dealing with very many bounce checks just through our registration office, school lunch, things like that, or,
They happen, yes.
you know?
Mhm. I wouldn't say a lot, I guess, That's what
It
you-
might be something worth considering, just moving away from completely. It's the one method of payment that can still default.
true. Right, very true.
Devil's advocate here, though, you charge a convenience fee.
There's a
If it's
fee.
the only way that I can pay, why am I paying a convenience fee?
Yeah.
We ate the convenience fee, for school lunch.
For school lunch, yeah, but
Or
for
we
like
could
anything
cover
class
for-
community, I get a convenience fee.
Right.
Any athletics that I pay for, I get that if I pay for it online. And it's not just our district, every district
Right.
does that.
You're absolutely right. When we started this, I mean, the school lunch was the first pro, and that was, like, no one ever heard of being able to do that online, but we decided early on, we will pay the convenience fee because it really saved us time from a staffing point, just to not have to deal with it, plus the issues of just handling all that cash.
Yeah, so I mean, it may be worth our while to go ahead and cover that fee. And like on Class Community, I let the fundraisers know, you can either not charge it, or they have the option, they can select to ask for them to cover the fee or not cover it. It just eats into their fundraiser if they don't come.
Right.
So it's their choice. But, okay.
If you scroll up to H, Jason,
Oh, sorry.
our professional staff have a few opportunities, scroll down, sorry, and pause. Our professional staff have a few opportunities to earn additional compensation. And one of the ways is to take on summer work, and so we have two options, we have summer school and we have extended school year. Extended school year speaks directly to those students' IEPs. And it's really our special education staff, it's our occupational therapists, really all of our therapists and our pathologists. Right now, the way that the handbook is written is our special education teachers who are working with our students on their IEPs are getting the summer school pay rate of $25 per hour. Our therapists and our pathologists are getting their per diem contract rate. We're making the recommendation that move our special ed teachers away from the summer school pay model and now group them with the other special education staff, because the work that they do with our students in the summer more closely aligns with the work that they do with our students all year long, because they're tied to that IEP.
And the extended school year is if the student qualifies for it, it's a guaranteed right of that student. It's not like an optional program, and we have to have the certified special education teacher. As opposed to summer school, you have the flexibility where it can be any certified teacher can teach any subject. And it's optional, it's not a required course. So long story short, it's been hard for us to find these certified people at the summer school.
We work very hard, our athletic department works very hard at trying to encourage our current staff to volunteer at athletic events, at dances, at anything kind of beyond the workday. And so we are making the recommendation that our staff be eligible as an incentive for up to two additional PTO days. So for every 7 events you work, one additional PTO day would be earned, additional 7 days. A second PTO day would be earned, which means that our school year staff could earn up to 4 PTO days in a school year. 2 are automatically given to all of our school year staff. And then if they volunteer, or if they work at these athletic events or these after school events, they could earn up to 2 more. We've heard from our staff that they want more flexibility to be able to kind of balance life in their classroom, and 2 PTO days doesn't always speak to that. And so if they're willing to kind of give us more time after school, they'll still be paid the assignment stipend. And then they would also be eligible for, if approved, additional PTO time.
I'm encouraged by this. I'm hoping that the staff will take the opportunity.
I think this can be, yeah. I could see this, especially if people know, like, oh, my nephew's getting married in the spring. And that's something that's unique with education. It's hard to make it to those events during the school year. So this could grant some greater flexibility on that. And I think it'll be nice for them to be able to do that. And that would give them the leeway that obviously get those 2 days they need to work 14 events, which that's quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Put in. And when you look at if you break down what they're making per hour on those events, I mean, you get $27 for an assignment up to 4 hours, which most assignments don't last 4 hours. They're probably closer to a 2-hour range, but that's about $13.50 an hour.
Minimum wage.
If it's a 2-hour range, so that's not a huge motivator for.
We did look at, should we just increase the assignment rate? Should we just pay more? But our staff aren't intrigued by that right now. That's not to say we're never gonna come back, we're never gonna need to look at the rates, but we feel that we would have more staff involvement, we would be able to staff better at these events if there was a PTO incentive.
I didn't have this thought during the personnel committee, or I would have brought it up, but. I mean, just thinking about 2 additional days, if we made it eligible for up to 3, that's a 1 work week. I mean, is there a problem or a challenge of? Because that is a common occurrence where it's like, well, I have a destination wedding, we're going
Great
for a
point.
week. In this scenario, they would have to take 4 days and then take it on paid day.
Mhm. Great point.
I don't know, would there be opposition to modifying that to 3?
But right now, we're 7 and 7 to earn each of the days, right? So are we,
So that would be 21.
okay, so you're adding another 7, okay.
I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Unless there's a rollover, could you fit that in a year?
That's a lot of events.
That's a lot of events.
That's a lot of events. I really like the scratching out athletic events and why do,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
there are a lot of events that need to be covered.
I think you could if you, because you've got all the middle school events, you've got the high school events, you've got. I mean, you'd have to be really purposeful in saying, hey, I want to take everything I can, but you've got JV events, freshman events, varsity events, those are all separate events.
And each event is defined as 4 hours or less. So if you're working an 8-hour event, that counts as 2 assignments right there.
Oh, exactly.
So,
So. We don't have very many.
no, it'd be more like all day tournaments and whatnot for some of your sports.
So we could, this is a first read, so we can modify
Yeah,
it, so
absolutely.
then we put a language in to do
3.
3.
Okay.
We need to clarify and differentiate bus versus door supervision. So at the elementary and middle school, we have bus supervision. At the high school, we have door supervision. They are 2 wildly different things. We've needed to clarify that and make that more clear in our handbook.
And they're wildly different because of the time span. The high school, I believe they're at the door for 45 minutes, is that
30 minutes,
30 minutes? And the bus duties shorter time.
less than 15. We have a lot of very exciting opportunities coming down the pipeline at Options Virtual Charter Academy, and we need to be very crystal clear with our staff what these 3 new roles look like there to support the virtual school. So Jason, I guess I'm gonna turn it over to you for these 3 because you have a little bit better.
Yeah, so the local education guide and that dollar amount we've had there since the inception of the virtual school. What a guide is it's when we enroll a student into a virtual class. We assign a staff member to, when we're not providing the instructor, say if they're taking a class through Wisconsin Virtual School. They're assigned an instructor from our building or a local education guide to make sure they're attending the class, staying on top of it, make sure that they're being successful in the course, that they're getting access to tutoring or any supports that they need. We don't just turn them loose and cross our fingers on that. So that's the local education guide and the stipend related to that. The teacher on record is utilizing, they're the teacher who's actually assigned to provide the grade. Oftentimes it might be they're taking the course through Apex or through a CAN curriculum. It doesn't necessarily mean this teacher on record is developing and delivering that direct instruction, but they're the ones overseeing the instruction, the learning process. And so that has a different stipend related to it. We've also created a opportunity where teachers who are already delivering courses at the high school, and we have a lot of them that are excited about this opportunity, have agreed to take their course and put it onto Canvas and develop it into an online asynchronous course that they would then deliver to students, could be students from Elkhorn. Say, for example, Mr. Eiserloth offers computer science programming, CSP, but it's only one section of it and it's during hour 2. And you have a student who really wants that course, but needs a different course hour 2. They could register for that course through us, take it outside of that class hour, and Mr. Eiserloth will have it set up so they can complete it in an asynchronous fashion. And that saves us the money as well, because then we're not paying tuition to Wisconsin Virtual School or a different provider for that course. And it also incentivizes our teachers and gives them some additional compensation for providing that additional service. But we can also then open those courses to other districts around the state. And so we've been working on a partnership with CSA 3, which has a lot of smaller high schools, which really struggle to find those specialized teachers like physics teachers, computer science teachers, and those type platforms. So we have a formula set up where we would deliver those online courses, or they can get access to that course for $300 a trimester, which is kind of undercutting some of the other virtual schools, and we've looked at the competitors, but it also still provides that additional financial resource for us where we're covering the compensation of the teacher, but also then covering some of our operational costs in addition to that. And so that's why we're proposing the teacher on record stipend. You'll see that we would create basically a base rate of $500 and then $175 for each student. They need to have, we're planning on, they need to get at least, I don't remember if it was at least 5 students for us to run this section. And then, so we'll never be at a point where we're not bringing in positive revenue on it. And then once they get past 15 students, then we'll address or look at that compensation amount. In theory, and we've seen this with other online platforms, where if you have a really popular course offering and the word gets out there, you could have 80, 100 students in a online course offering. And so that's where we really see the economy of scale come into play, where we can give the teacher a nice compensation, yet not $175 a student at that point. But we'll negotiate a fair compensation for that, but then that's when the district would be generating significant positive revenue.
I think this one's really exciting because not only do some of our current staff have interest in being able just to give additional students exposure to their content, but we have staff who are ready to retire but still don't want to fully leave education. And they would totally be interested in something like this. So we get to continue to use our expert staff on serving our students, and we don't have to now kind of shop this out to Wisconsin Virtual School anymore. We get to do it with our own staff locally.
To give you an idea, I think we paid approximately, just the high school alone was close to $55,000 in tuition expenditure just to Wisconsin Virtual School to meet this need of that course conflict that we had. So I think that'll create some internal savings, but also keep that revenue or that expenditure with our staff and reward them for putting it together. So I think it was very well received, and we had a lot of staff who, you know the exact number that.
I don't.
Okay, Mr. Trotter spearheaded this and
Yes.
put this together, and yeah, we just had a meeting this morning. We've run into a little bit of a hiccup with the technical college system because they get really touchy when you get outside of your district boundaries. So on transcripted courses, and we have a lot of transcripted courses that we offer. So as it stands right now, I need to either get some legislation changed or some different approvals from the state to allow like a student from Platteville to take a transcripted course through us and get transcripted credit either through Southwest Tech or through Gateway. Any Elkhorn student, anybody open enrolled to us can do the transcripted course. So we'll see if we can get the Wisconsin technical system to get on board. There's 16 colleges, so it's really not practical to try to form a transcripted agreement with all 16 and have to do 16 different agreements for one course. So I mean, another alternative is I may use some of the other network that we have and see if there's a out-of-state provider that's not restricted by, as much as I'd like to keep it in state, I might have to go to like Southwest Minnesota Tech or Oklahoma State Tahlequah, or a different institution that would be willing to transcript the course for those outside of the Gateway district. But yeah, exciting opportunity, and that's why we plugged that in there. I don't expect this to be huge in year one, but I see it could take off in the next couple of years.
And then the third one there is just for classes that get to be very, very large in enrollment, teachers not able to realistically manage all those students. And so they've provided support, and that support would be paid at an hourly basis, helping that teacher manage that class. This section here is just for our support staff handbook. It's a different policy number, and so this is just the exact language that we used in the professional handbook. We're just now mirroring it for this 25.5 support staff for the work beyond this work beyond the school day for the PTO incentive.
Do we need to make the same adjustment for adding recruiting?
Bingo, yes. And we'll do that.
Oh, yeah.
And I have just a really oddball question that has
Okay.
nothing to do with this. What is the district-wide chemical hygiene officer?
That is the person that makes sure our chemistry labs don't blow up
Okay.
by having,
Extremely important.
and I literally say that.
It's great, but
I have a great appreciation for that position, which I didn't used to. We had a chemistry teacher, wonderful man in New Glarus, who had white phosphorus and would pull it out to show everybody that it kind of blows up, you know, just when it's exposed to oxygen, and it kind of broke apart and fell on 3 kids and burned through their shoe. Luckily, he was very beloved and the cross-country coach, and 2 of the kids were his cross-country runners, but the state was appalled. We had to take them up to Madison to go and get detoxified and washed, and they're
Oh
like,
my
what's the high school have white phosphorus for? Well, it was an oversight. Back in the 70s, it was allowed and they never got rid of it, and so anyways, we quickly got a chemical hygiene officer, and it's very expensive to get rid of these,
My husband was in a
Yeah.
science class and he and a friend were, you know, kind of doing their independent project and teacher came over to check out that they were making gunpowder.
So the chemical hygiene officer, yes, well, make sure that. That's, they make sure all of all of that is up to date, safe and disposed of properly.
I believe 2 years before I started here, I think Elkhorn has, I don't wanna say that same situation, but had a situation where they had an explosion in the
Yes.
science lab.
They put it down the drain, right? Was it in the drain?
I don't know if it was down the drain, but I think it was.
I just remember evacuating the high school.
Yeah.
Oh my
Is
gosh.
this Mr. Sadler's stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna mention it.
There's a lot of things that happen.
Was it sodium by chance? You know?
Oh, I don't remember. I just remember the fire alarms going off. I know it was right at the end of school.
Oh.
Yeah, the school districts used to not be able to be sued for, I believe negligence or. You know, if something happened, you couldn't sue a district, but there's a Supreme Court case in Wisconsin, came out of New Glarus, that you can now be sued. It wasn't related to the chemicals, that was wearing the drunk goggles simulation in class, and the court basically ruled like, at a certain point. There's and I'm just doing my interpretation summary, at a certain point, common sense dictates that there's a potential hazard that if you are that negligent in it, that you can be held liable when you say, that's so. All right, that's a long explanation of chemical hygiene.
So you can see that in this section, we offer a lot of different opportunities for our students. And so we're wanting to add a few more for this next year. First one being Storybook STEM, 3 total, 1 at each of our elementary buildings. That would be a stipend, recognizing all their time. Strength and conditioning coordinator. That's an hourly rate because the hours fluctuate so much. And so we don't feel comfortable giving a stipend, knowing that the hours could be really, really low or they could be really, really high. So that is an hourly recommendation. Elementary would like to introduce an NBA Math Hoops after school math program, or kind of club for our students to kind of have some more exposure to the fun side of math, which is exciting. We have at the middle school and high school, we are recommending that the special education team leader earn $5,000. And so you can see the row above it is the middle school team leads, and then the row below that blue highlight there is the high school department chairs. And so in both of our middle school and high school, we have leaders, we have chairpersons, however you want to refer to it, in all of our departments. Special education has always had a lead. What makes special education very unique compared to their counterparts is that our high school and middle school special ed leaders manage the special ed pairs in their building. So they have not only the responsibilities that all of their peer leaders have in terms of leading their department, they also have a group of support staff that they're responsible for managing, supervising, coordinating their schedules. So they have added responsibility. It's a crucial role. They work very closely in that role with our director of special education. But the increased responsibility, we believe very strongly warrants a higher stipend for that person.
What was it before?
At the middle school, our person was earning, about 1,500. At the high school, the position allowed for 2 people. It was really one person and she was getting $5,000. That did the 2,500 twice.
Thank you.
So this is 2 positions each at 5,000?
One middle school, one high school, yeah.
Okay.
And then the last one here is we're just recommending a slight increase to our substitute teacher rate of pay. Increasing from 125 to 130 to maintain competitiveness with our local school districts and their sub rate. And then we would like to keep our retiree teachers engaged. When you are able to have a retired teacher come back to the classroom as a sub, light years ahead of our typical subs, because they know the building, they know their colleagues, they know the expectations. And so we would like to propose that retired teachers who work for the district are accelerated and they earn $160 per day rather than the 125 or we're proposing 130, which would be new for this next year.
And then does that same idea need to be expanded in the 0.2? They're on the job for more than 10 days, 10 consecutive days.
Want to start on for me?
Meaning, should they also have a bump above the $200 after the 10 days?
However it needs to be worded, I'm not sure, but yes. I mean, make it equal. I mean, if they're,
Absolutely. You can certainly have that in.
We can go, it's a $30 differential in the pay, so
$30.
add a $30. Okay. So add that for the retired. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. That's all the handbook proposals,
That
right?
was all the handbook.
thank you.
Item is personnel.
All right, this is the personnel sheet. We did receive a later retirement request from Maureen Marks. Want to thank her for her service many years to the school district and wish her well after 35 years with the school district. We had the resignation of Nicholas Lang, and I won't go through the rest of them there. Well, Nicholas Lang, Rachel Trinko, and Isabel Tadlock. And then transfers, you'll start seeing all the internal transfers to the open positions there. I'm happy to answer any questions as best I can. Yeah. And the way we handled these were, I don't believe there's a single one in here that was an involuntary transfer. They are all, what we did is we posted the positions as they came open internally. The principals at each of the different sites would hold the individual interviews with those that had expressed interest in those positions, and then they would grant the transfer to best fill their team or as they felt best met their team's needs.
There's no questions or concerns. I'm looking for a motion to approve the personal recommendation sheet.
I move to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for June 9th, 2025, including new employee contracts conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening as presented.
Second, please.
Awesome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome, thanks, everybody.
I will say at this point, we haven't had to have any involuntary transfers because we've had the attrition. I'm hoping that we won't have to have any involuntary because you always like it when people are in a position they want to be in, but It may, that someday we may have to have a relocation assignment. It's needed, but it's looking good so far.
Good. All right, let's go on to the acceptance of school gifts, please.
Yeah, we have one school gift to present this evening. Flip the page. The Elkhorn Area Middle School PTOs donated $1,350 for the sumo suits. That's the suit you put on, they blow up with air and they
Yeah.
bounce around and hit each other. $2,593 for the 8th grade class shirts and $1,508.02 for the mini course day supplies.
Awesome. A motion to accept these generous school gifts, please.
I move to accept the generous school gifts as presented.
A second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Awesome. Next item of business is the second reading for the proposed 2025-2026 student parent handbook.
All right. The only notable change is we did update the start and end times as we had discussed at the last meeting. The high school will begin 5 minutes earlier, finish 10 minutes later, and the elementary students will start at the same time, but end 10 minutes later. In order to accommodate the busing needs. I don't know if there's anything in particular anyone else wanted to this section. But otherwise, it's as presented in the last night.
Any questions or comments, corrections, concerns?
I would add the bell schedule, well, it's starting 5 minutes early, ending 5 minutes later. And then we're modifying how we do the lunch bell schedule slightly differently, which will gain a total of what's considered 20 minutes of additional time at the high school level. So currently the passing time, what we'll do is we'll put the passing bell with 5 minutes left to go in that 30 minutes, and we'll have a 10-minute passing time instead of a 5-minute passing time, so they can wrap up lunch. So it's 15 minutes in total start and end time, but modifies that bell schedule.
So the class period will be the same time.
No, the class periods will extend by either 3 to 4 minutes each period.
Okay.
If there are just no corrections, looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 student parent handbook as presented.
A second, please.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next item of business is second reading of the new policy, the 3rd grade promotion and retention at risk.
Okay, I did not have any further feedback from the first reading. Again, this is the required policy for us to have in place by the state, and it follows Neola's quite closely, other than we've incorporated direct language from the state statute that we liked better than Neola's language, and that's highlighted in blue.
Looks like we don't have any corrections. Looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the new policy, 3rd grade promotion and retention at risk students as presented.
A second, please.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next item is announcements.
The next policy committee meeting is Monday, June 16th at 10 a.m. Looking if it's agreeable to the board, would like to move the next board meeting from June 23rd to June 30th. If that works for the board members. 2 reasons. Mr. Truan will be out of town on the 23rd, and I have commitments on the 23rd as well. But also we're hoping that we may have more clarity related to the state budget with an additional week.
Once
that
you
works
said
for
Bill
everyone.
wasn't gonna be here, that means we have to move it.
We don't want him to weasel out on his last official board meeting. I know he'll be around in July too.
That is the Monday with Fourth of July, that Friday. So just to keep that on your radar, if people are gonna be gone for the
Oh, I see.
week or. something like that.
It's good for me.
That's
good for
fine,
me.
it's fine with me.
Okay. All right. And I do want to thank the elementary staff and recognize they put in a long week of training on their Act 20 reading training. They did a very good job and are working on many of them have already passed the exam that they need to take in relation to that. I think that week worked well and went smooth. I think parents and families were understanding, at least I didn't have any complaints or phone calls that the kids were out of school that week. And so I think it was a good strategy that Amy G and the team put together to get that training done for staff.
Yep. Right.
Just one additional thing, next Tuesday is the CISA 2 convention.
Oh, okay.
And so I'll be attending that. And I have to see your name, or I have to see your title. The keynote speaker will be Trish Kilpin, who is the executive director of the Office of School Safety.
Oh, okay. That's where I recognize the name.
Okay. It's nothing to be so. I'm looking to-
I've seen her quite a bit. She's pretty good. I think it's a great office that they put together a few years ago. I know it's been under concern whether that stay open and so forth, but they've been a great resource to schools and districts, so should be good. We do have a closed session to review a request from the staff member.
I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Closed session.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to contemplated closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, para 1, para C, to consider retirement request from the support staff member. The school board may reconvene in open session for action as appropriate and or to adjourn.
Second to this motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everyone.